some of them, but the biggest challenge you've encountered in your academic career, and then flip it on its edge, and what makes you get up in the morning and do what you do? Don't all go at once.
For me, it's the teaching keeps me going. It's to be in a room where somebody, you can see their eyes get a little wider, or they're talking with somebody and they're saying something that they've discovered, and you've had a hand in structuring something that's helped them come to that realization. That's a little hit of heroin, and it is an addictive, powerful, narcotic experience, and you just want to keep going back for it. It has that kind of power, you know, in terms of being a teacher. If you want to be involved in having somebody come to that aha moment, it really doesn't get better than that for me as a teacher. And so much so that I really don't like being away from teaching for very long. I don't like sabbaticals. Being outside the classroom for 6 months or a year starts to make me uneasy and edgy, and you know, I'm missing a big part of what sort of fuels me. So I really like the teaching part. The challenge for me has been that I haven't written as much as I'd like to. You know, so that's the part, and I like to write. I really do like to research, but it takes more discipline than I've sometimes had to say, I'm not going to do that additional work in the teaching field. I will get myself to the archives and explore that collection of letters that I've been meaning to do all term. So that's kind of the balancing act for me. I like both, but one I have to be a little wary. I actually have to be a little wary of overcommitting to the one that I enjoy most of all. I have to limit that in some ways. But.
Sure. I mean, I think to start on the challenging aspect is just, I think given where I am, there's a level of insecurity about, am I doing the right things, doing enough, is it going to matter even if I do it, how is this going to work out? So I'm in this very uncertain phase, and you know, when somebody told me I had a 9-month position, I was like, wow, I just sort of settled in here for a while now, this is good. Like, it was actually, like I was given something that's so fabulous, and it was a great opportunity, but I had this insecurity of, well, how many articles do I need to publish? Or, oh, I've been second author on 3 straight papers. Do I need to be first author now? And is my teaching being recognized? And does it matter? Or so it's this constant insecurity, I think, that I'm faced with. But you know, my experience in working in athletics so much and talking about performance, and I've come up with all these great handles of, worry will never change the future. Worry doesn't change anything. Action changes things. Take appropriate acts. Like, so I cope with these things well, but it's this overall feeling of insecurity and uncertainty. It's like, my goodness, I've invested 15 years in my academic, you know, like in my academic career, like as a student. Why? So I can feel insecure and nervous and all of these things. Like my buddy who graduated 11 years ago is, you know. So that's the challenge for me still. I totally agree with the teaching side of things, though. That is what gets me up in the morning. When I think of a new creative way to deliver content, I cannot wait to get in the classroom. I'm playing it out in my head in the shower in the morning. I'm excited to do it. I can't wait to see how the students react. And the other bit of, when you see the eyes open, here's the thing that happened this past year that was probably the highlight, is I heard students talking about something we discussed in class and outside of the university totally, at the farmer's market, they were talking about something and I just walked by, they didn't see me. I was like, wow, they're actually learning. Like, and not just so they can do well on the test, they're actually learning and using this information. That gets me up in the morning, and that is the huge part. And so I feel really great about that student side and the connection that I'm having there, but how does this matter and what is this going to turn into for me? And that's the struggle for me.
I guess we'll go in line, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to take a slightly different tack. Yes, you know, teaching is part. I'm not someone who resents the teaching. You know, that's the thing that you do to pay for all the other stuff. I'm at a university that calls itself a teaching priority university. So as a faculty member entering there, you understand that, you know, teaching's maybe 50% of how you'll be evaluated. Research is maybe 30 or 40%, and then the rest being service, just in terms of that professional portfolio. So in that professional structure, then, what gets me working. During the academic year, and I have a teaching load, right? That's where the daily encounter is. So for 8 or 9 months a year, that's high priority. And it has to be, because I've got to be in the room and I'm accountable. I want those to be good relationships, good rapport, all of that kind of stuff. I want my course to be interesting. But about 6 years into this full-time job, I had basically burned out. Lots of committee work, trying to get some publications out, all of that kind of stuff. And one of the things that I hadn't really planned on doing, but it came as a consequence of this sort of taking stock, I totally changed trajectories in terms of everything I was going to teach and everything I was going to research. I took an entirely new perspective. I'd been trained in one way, and I became interested in an entirely different topic and subject, and I was a first-year sort of faculty member again. I'm in the process of writing this book that's come from that transformation. I am teaching an entirely new slate of courses, that I've had to re-educate I'm good at learning. I can teach myself. That's, what this whole process is. And, I'm not changing careers, but I've basically changed jobs. I still teach, I still research, but this is a different project. It felt for a while that I was publishing yet more case studies according to this perspective that came from my graduate training. Not part of my thesis, that had gone. But, essentially looking for new circumstances in which I'd take the same kinds of perspectives. And some of this came, certainly it's not in isolation, some of this came from having some discussions with some of my colleagues. Because, and not about, oh, I'm burning out, what should I do? But rather, what you're working on is really interesting. How did that come about? And in my own case, the research program actually stemmed from a couple of questions in the classroom that, good questions, who knows? And some of it also came from deciding, had I not had to, shall we say, write a certain kind of dissertation for a certain kind of supervisor, what else might I have done in my doctoral training? Or what areas in literature didn't really even exist at that time? And so it's been fantastic. It's been liberating. I feel liberated and sort of revived. And my publication track record is taken off. My teaching is much better in the classroom. I have students, coming back, talking about, courses they've had either years ago or what have you. And I was an enthusiastic, engaged faculty member, I think, when I got the job originally. And I could see things starting to, sort of settle and shift a bit a few years ago. And then this takeoff, it wasn't anticipated, it wasn't part of a career plan, but it really helped. Other little tip, if you ever get the chance, depending on how, shall we say, set your department or program is, I offered them a 4-year plan for what I want to teach. And how could that fold into the curriculum? Because what I wanted to teach stemmed very much from this sort of new direction I'd taken. So these were all new courses. We, could develop the curriculum around that. So teaching supported my research. And it's not to say that then I only did in the classroom what I was researching. It really, was not one competing with the other. Yeah.
Cool. The answer, I guess, I'll recall a phone conversation I had last night with my best friend in Toronto. It went something like this. How's it going, Ted? And I go, well, I got this research trip on the 14th, and I'm going to all these different places, and I haven't booked my hotels, and I'm still not sure I'm going to find everything I'm going to find, and really I'm just going to scratch the surface, and before then I have to finish my portfolio, because I'm submitting for my for renewal of my contract. And then I got this generous grant from the Center of Enhanced Teaching and Learning, the Teaching and Learning Priorities Fund, so I have to, which I'm going to use to rejig my social studies teaching, and I haven't even started to think about how I'm going to do that. And I haven't picked my books, and I still have 2 articles I have to return, and I have 2 defenses, and I have them. And he's like, whoa, I'm starting to get stressed just listening to you. So that's the biggest obstacle I found, is that kind of thinking. The thinking that led to me saying what I said. And what gets me up in the morning is that I'm going on a research trip, and I'm going to these places, and I'm involved in graduate student work, and I have this opportunity to rethink my teaching, and all of this. I'm doing exactly what I want to do. I love every aspect of my job. Sometimes it feels like it's a lot, and it is a lot, but that's because I've decided to make it so. And if I could say no more often, or maybe I don't say no more often because I just love all of these different things so much, and they contribute to making my job more fulfilling and more full, and my life more full as a consequence.
There really are more. I mean, there's more things to do than we have time to do.
Yeah.
You know, I'm 20 years in, and it's just in the last year or two that I've thought, okay, now that you've got these things, you know, what's the next stage? And I'm just beginning to figure out how to use play, game, those sorts of things in the classroom. I'm just starting to get my students to set up with fun activity. I mean, they really think they're playing their way through the process, and yet I think they're getting more out of. I can get them to do things by setting them up to play with them more deeply than if I just try to teach it to them, talk to them. And I'm just beginning this. I think, oh crap, there's like 15 years is not going to be enough to learn how to do that really well. And then how will I pass it on if I get something that's useful? How will I make sure that doesn't just, you know, end with my practice if something good comes out of it? So there really are, I think this idea of discovering the new stage, look, it's serendipity sometimes. Something happens and sets you off in a new direction. That really is a great part of our profession. We get to reinvent ourselves sometimes. It's not to be underestimated for